fact, in Hocus is when Frank is kidnapped.
Yes, right.
And so you decided, if I remembered the statement that you made, that rather than just having Irene go on and on about how she was feeling, that we would hear from Frank, the kidnapped victim, how he was feeling.
Well, just trying to figure out why he's been taken.
That too.
Why he was the victim, and
was it a cop thing? Was it a personal thing? Because you always have that question, I think, you know, with somebody working in stress areas like that. If you're a cop, you know, if something bad happens to you, is it because you're a cop, or is it because you're you?
Right, and for him, I mean, it is very much tied to a complication in that he knows these kidnappers.
True.
So
a hint, maybe,
yeah, that's not a big giveaway. That's spelled out pretty clearly early on in the book.
But anyway, you had practice with Frank up until Flight.
Right, and so Flight is entirely third person, which is the first book I've written that was entirely from that point of view. And Irene, although she's in the book, the only chapter I have with her is from third person. So it was a little strange to be stepping outside of her, or to have moments when they were both, in previous books, that they were both on the page at the same time. It was from her first person point of view.
You only saw Frank through Irene's eyes.
Right, right. And so you would never see Irene from his point of view, with her right there. He would be thinking about her or whatever. You would,
when they were separated.
Right, you would get some sense of how he felt about her, but you didn't see him interact with her right there in the room at the same time. So that was really interesting to me, to suddenly see how he perceived her up close and personal, right on the spot.
Sure.
And I also enjoyed writing a procedural, a book that was really from a law enforcement person's point of view. He's a homicide detective, so.
And the case comes up from an old homicide case, right?
Right.
And a cop, in fact, who disappeared in the middle of a case and nobody ever knew what happened.
Right.
So what I like about it is that Frank is doing this whole case because he's a cop and not because he's Frank.
Exactly.
It's so easy to make everything personal. And part of the reason to have a cop is so that it can be professional. It's just a case, you know. It doesn't have to have a personal connection.
Exactly.
And I liked that, you know, because Irene's cases really have to have a nexus. Some reason for her, even if it's just chasing a story.
Right, exactly. I mean, no reporter encounters as many dead bodies as Irene does, or gets involved to the extent she does. That's a sort of forgiveness or suspension of disbelief that you ask for when someone reads an amateur sleuth novel. I think most writers trust that readers are used to that in the amateur sleuth story now. But at the same time, to have a case where it is a professional investigation, where it's an obligation that he has, because this is his job, and as reluctant as he may be to pursue some aspects of it, or although he may have to fight against the department actually to get it at the truth, it is his job. And he, in fact, I think, stays dedicated to, even though it makes him unpopular in the department, to take the view of the case that he does. That what's important to him is he does take that job seriously. He does have a very strong ethical base that he operates from individually, and it doesn't have to do with being part of a brotherhood on this sort of superficial way, but in a much deeper way, I think, for him. So that was different with this book, and I think again with the book I'm working on now, it's good to just stretch and ask your readers to go with you into another area. I think a lot of series writers worry about becoming defined by the series.
Well, and there are boundaries, because every book you write, you give baggage to them that then, you know, limits to some degree what they can do in future books. And also, you can't really stay in third person and keep Irene exactly as she is. So if you want to write more third person, or if you want to do more procedurals, you're almost going to have to either do the S.J. Roseanne thing of writing one for Irene and one for Frank, which is, you know, not an impossibility, or as you say, try something else outside, see how it goes. And the advantage, let's be blunt, of having won the Edgar and becoming a bigger seller is that you can then do that and get away with it. Whereas when you're building your audience, seems how it works best at the moment is you build your audience with a series because people can identify with it. You know, it has all those features that tend to bond with readers and get them to go along. And so then when you want to take them somewhere else, they'll go with you. Whereas it's an awfully risky thing. Way back, there are more people at the moment writing individual books rather than series from the get-go, and I think part of that has to do with the dynamics of the movie industry and the fact that when you sell series rights, sell a character, you know, you've sold the whole character over all the books you're ever going to write about that character to the movies, and there are more people conscious of the book being a film, where and you're only giving up the book. You know, when Michael Connelly sold Bloodwork to Clint Eastwood, even though the movie has yet to be made, if it ever is made, which I hope it will be, he only gave up Terry at that moment for Bloodwork, and now presumably he's going to have to have lost him for Darkness More Than Night too. So, you know, if you sell Irene off, she's gone, right? In that sense. So there's a lot of reasons, I think, for this fondness for the single novel, but it's a lot harder to build an audience in a hurry, you know, doing that.
Yeah, I think.
So your timing's probably really good.
Thank you. I hope that proves to be true. I also have an editor now who I think is one of the best in the business, Mary Sue Ricci, and she's.
You lost Laurie to motherhood, didn't you?
Yes, I did. I did, and Laurie was a fantastic editor. I really feel the books grew with her. Mary Sue is, I think, a real risk taker.
How helpful.
So it helps me, yeah.
Tell me just for a moment, because we're winding down, about your short stories. You've mentioned that you have done some, and they're all disparate. I can't even remember, pardon me for this, have you written one with Irene?
One, actually, called A Fine Set of Teeth. And that one was published first by ASAP Press, and a limited edition, and then later was published in Alfred Hitchcock Mystery Magazine. There's been 3 or 4 collections since then, but it's so far the only Irene short story. We're putting together, I'm working with Jim Seals on doing an anthology of collection of all my stories, and I'm going to try to write another one. It may not be Irene, but it'll be some character out of that series, probably.
Maybe it'll be Frank.
Yeah.
Who can tell?
Yeah.
Well, and you mentioned ASAP Press, and I was going to say that you are one of the authors who you have a big trade publisher, Simon & Schuster, but you have done a number of things with this specialty press, ASAP, that you mentioned, which are really for the collector market. I mean, they're expensive, and they are your short stories and special bindings with photographs and artwork and all kinds of classy stuff. We've sold quite a lot of them at the store. And there are a number of you who have done very well with ASAP, and that's kind of fun, I think, to play to that, that special market.
Well, I think, as you know from, congratulations, by the way, on your Raven, that you're about to receive. But I think there are some real advantages for the very small presses like Jim's, Jim Seals, and he is really wonderful to work with because he's just very understanding that for most of the people that he deals with, our primary work is in novels. That's where we make our bread and butter. Short stories aren't going to support us, so he's very.
Well, short stories are almost for fun. I mean, the pay is ludicrous for a short story, so you have to just want to do it, right?
Exactly. Yeah.
But Jim does a very quality product, and I think of them as primarily fun for you, rather than, you know,
they are
income producing.
Right, and they also allow, again, that stretch. I have a story that is set in Regency, England, that was sort of inspired from reading a lot of Georgette Hare.
My favorite author. Always going to be my favorite author.
So I could not do that. I could not bring Irene to the early 19th century.
And the other good thing, too, is with a short story is that you're not investing a year of your life like you are writing a novel. You can write, you can follow a muse to some new place or frivolous place even, or whatever it is, and you're only giving up a relatively short working span, but of course the dynamics of it are different. So I hope that we will be able to read your stories. This has really been fun, Jan.
Thank
We've
you.
run out of time, Janet.